Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us. We are so pleased that you will be joining us to hear Marc and Kitty speak. It is my pleasure to welcome you to the Wheaton Conversation program. I'm Pamela Weichman, the Director of Education and Artist Services at WheatonArts. I'm a white female in my 30s with long brown hair and blue eyes, and I'm wearing a maroon shirt. My background is blurred. My pronouns are she and her. I'm broadcasting from southern New Jersey, which I recognize as traditionally the land of the Lenni Lenape. Wheaton Conversations is presented by PNC Arts Alive, the United Nations International Year of Glass, and the Art Alliance for Contemporary Glass. We thank them for their support. Through membership, donations, and shopping at shop.wheatonarts.org, you can show your support. Please consider exploring these options so we can continue to offer free programs like this. It is my pleasure to introduce two WheatonArts program directors that will be joining our speakers, Mary Cheek Mills and Alexander Rosenberg. Mary Mills is the Director of Exhibitions and Collections at WheatonArts and is curator of the Museum of American Glass 2024 exhibition, Centuries of Tomfoolery, Trick Glasses, Pipes, and Whimsical Delights. Mary is also the Historic Glass Specialist for AECOM Cultural Resources, where she assists archaeologists in identifying and interpreting glass artifacts recovered in Philadelphia. Alex is a Philadelphia-based educator, artist, and writer, and the Glass Studio Director at WheatonArts. He earned a Master of Science in Visual Studies from MIT and a BFA in Glass from Rhode Island School of Design. Alex will be participating in the Arctic Circle residency program this spring. The Arctic Circle is a nexus where art intersects science, architecture, education, and activism. The program is an incubator for thought and experimentation for artists and innovators who seek out and foster areas of collaboration to engage in the central issues of our time. Mary and Alex, thank you for joining us and for leading our conversation.
Thank you.
Thanks, Pam. Before, I'm going to let Mary talk a little bit more about the wonderful exhibition that's in the museum right now and Marc and Kitty's contribution to that. But I just quickly want to say how excited I am by the topic. I mentioned this to you guys before, but I think all of these historically curious glass blowers out there, like this is the book that we wanted to exist for such a long time, the project that you two worked on and kind of the topic that you're talking about tonight. So I'm thrilled to have you here and just looking forward to hearing you say what you have to say. I'll pass it on to Mary to say a little bit more.
Well, I echo everything that Alex just said. Since I was at Corning, I've always been very interested in the trick glasses because, as you know, they're some of the most bizarre pieces that you'll see in any museum. A few of the examples are. And I was very excited, Marc, to get to meet you at Urban Glass and see you and Kitty give your presentation there, because I was just sort of working on this exhibit, and I knew that I wanted trick glasses to be an important part of that. So first, before I introduce you, I will say thank you very much, because Marc's glass is in the exhibit. Kitty's research is very evident there, as well as images and videos and lots of things that they have contributed to it for this year in 2024. So I'm going to just introduce you briefly and then let you start your presentation. So Marc is a glass blower who started his career actually as a biology major at Williams College, and he worked as a mixed media sculptor while he was learning and training as a glass blower. And he went to Amsterdam in 2025 and then moved there permanently. And excuse me, I misspoke, in 2005 and moved there permanently in 2009. He has a master's from the Sandberg Institute. And as he was just talking to us before we got started, he is now retiring as a commercial fisherman in Alaska. So he has a very multifaceted interest, let's put it like that. Kitty is part of a very well-respected family of glass and ceramic dealers in the Netherlands. And her main interest actually is in Venetian and Poisson de Venise glasses from the 15th to the 17th century. She studied Italian language and literature at the University of Amsterdam and has a minor in history. And you'll see how all of this fits together beautifully as in the research that she did for this. Kitty also teaches at the University of Amsterdam and is one of those stars. We know how they all come to be on the Dutch Antiques Roadshow. We have many friends who pop up on the roadshow all around the world. So thank you both for being with us, and we're really interested in hearing your presentation. Look forward to it. Thank you.
So we will be talking about trick glasses.
I just wanted to interrupt first and thank you all, everyone who's joined us online, and especially the WheatonArts for putting this together, Mary, Alexander, and Pamela for being in communication and setting this up for us and bringing us into this community. Many people whom we know both in Europe and the States are tuning in, and lots of others who we hope to come to know through this first experience. So thank you all for being here, and again, thank WheatonArts for putting all of this amazing work together. And I know that goes for Kitty as well. And so now we'll begin. And yeah, first I think we'll start with Kitty telling us a little bit about what trick glasses are.
Yeah, so they're so fascinating. Trick glasses are glasses to play with, and they're specially designed to surprise us in one way or the other. And there are several kinds of these glasses. If you look at the picture here, one in the front is so beautifully made and so terribly difficult to understand that it takes a while before you get to know how to drink from it. You see the wine in it, it is transparent and colorless glass, and you'll want to drink it because the color is beautiful and the smell is good, but you don't know how to get to it. Other glasses will spit in your face. One of these glasses is this boot that you may all know, because it's one of the few glasses that was used and invented in Renaissance times, but that is still used. And if you have seen them, or if you've even drunk from them, you know that if you hold this glass, the boot, with the toe upwards, and you drink the beer from it, because this is a beer glass, at a certain point, the beer is at such a low level that the air will go into the toe and will push the beer right in your face, all over your clothes. These games, most of them are about getting wet, getting surprised, sometimes getting drunk. And they are, this boot is not a contemporary boot, of course. This boot is made during Renaissance times, probably in Antwerp or in Germany, in the end of the 16th, early 17th century. And that is the period that Marc and I have been researching in the past decade or even longer. These glasses were made, most of them were made à la façon de Venise, so in the Venetian way. The first ones though were made in Venice. In Venice, they could make colorless glass for the first time. And colorless glass is very important for trick glasses because you want to see what is happening. But they could also make filigree glass, which is a Venetian invention of 1527. These glasses with the filigree, like this boot, could cover what was happening, and sometimes that is more important. So these two techniques in Venice have been very important to make the trick glasses. The first one were actually made in Venice, but it's very strange. Even nowadays, Italians and Venetians, they don't really like drinking games. We do like drinking games in the north of Europe, in the Netherlands, in Germany, in Austria. So the first of these glasses were ordered by the Austrians and even by us from the Venetians who made them for us. And quickly after that, they started making them à la façon de Venise in Austria, in Germany, and with us. So here, the Venetians came to make these glasses. They brought their techniques, and we had our shapes that we liked and our games that we liked. And this synergy is amazing, what is happening in these days, so in the end of the 16th, 17th, and still a little bit in the 18th century. The most beautiful glasses were made during this period, à la façon de Venise. And the trick glasses are sometimes amongst the most beautiful ones, but in any case, the most difficult ones to make, I think. These glasses obviously were very, very expensive. So they were only used by the happy few, usually, the most of them. And this is a beautiful example about where you can see who used these glasses. You see these beautifully dressed people courting each other, drinking together, eating together. And it is made by a female painter, and there are not so many known in this period. It's made in 1658, and this is a beautiful tiny little watercolor that is part of her Liber Amicorum, her friend's book, where her friends wrote poetry, made designs, and she made her own watercolors in it, showing the daily life of the period. And for us especially, is interesting this couple, because they are playing a drinking game. The guy is holding the glass as he should. I don't know if you know that, but during the 17th century and in the 16th century, on paintings, you'll see it, they would hold their glass on the foot instead of holding it on the stem, holding the stem. So they would hold it, of course, with their hands on the foot. But he is holding it as he should instead of with his hand, with his mouth. And he's pouring the white wine into the mouth of the girl sitting next to him. It's so stupid that we never tried it. We know about this because of this watercolor, but we've never tried it yet. We have to do it.
Mhm.
Yeah. But so whatever happens, probably the wine will go all over her, but maybe she will be able to finish it in one go. But whatever happens, this will break the ice between them. And that is one of the goals, the main goals of these games, to break the ice, to get to know each other. And we've seen that happening too. Well, that is what happens. Even these glasses, of course, most of them are filled with wine, especially in those days, or beer. But you can also use them with lemonade or water, and it will still bring you
Closer to
it. That's what I wanted to say. Oh yeah, sorry. And the thing is, I've known trick glasses all my life. I think it must have been one of the first glasses my father told us about, because of course, for a child, what is nicer than a trick glass? But I was actually not the one who started our research. That was Marc. Could you tell us something about it?
Sure. The trick glasses became a fascination of mine when I first came to Holland. So as Mary pointed out earlier, I started coming in 2005, and somewhere between 2005 and 2007, I went to the House, which is a museum, a canal house museum that has pieces of glass from the Amsterdam Museum collection. And I saw a bunch of interesting glasses there that I couldn't quite understand. And one of the glasses I saw was similar to this one, which, intrigued me quite intensively. And at a certain point, I actually came to Kitty's shop and I saw this glass as a collector was showing interest in it. And I got to examine the glass and experience it, and noticed that there were a lot of very interesting nuances besides this kind of odd tube that sticks out of the top with a form of a bird on top of it. There were a lot of other things going on that intrigued me. And so in 2007, I set about to try and make some of these. And here I'm making my very first trick glass at the Vrijglas Foundation here in Zaandam. That is kind of one of the things that brought me to the Netherlands, was helping to put together, build up, and kind of maintain this facility where glass was being made available to artists and designers and historians. And in this picture, you'll see intrigued as well is Kitty's brother, Willem Laméris, who I had recently met during this visit and spoken with about the fascination. So I invited him to come over because I wanted to show him what I was curious about. And here I'm making one of these siphon glasses. And here you can see him drinking out of a straw glass. It was still early in my research, so I can now tell you that this glass was incorrectly made. It's not intended to be drunk from this way, but nonetheless, I was curious, and this curiosity turned into a 15-year fascination. And that fascination started with, of course, seeing and trying to replicate. And then in 2012, I met Kitty, and I told her that, you know, we started working together on projects focusing on filigrana glass, and this resulted in a lot of conversations and late nights looking at glass. And at a certain point, I told her about my fascination with trick cups, and she informed me that she too had been fascinated since she started learning about glass. And so I asked her if she'd be willing or interested to kind of embark on an exploration of these objects. You know, they exist in most of the important collections around the world, both museum collections and private collections, and yet at the same time are fairly rare, and there's not a lot of information about them. And many of them are still not even identified as trick glasses. So it seemed like something that would be worthwhile to explore. And so here is a replica of that siphon glass that I made when I finally figured out how it worked. And what was really exciting was that the techniques were kind of intuitive. There was definitely a lot of trial and error going into it, but how to put them together, it seemed like relatively fundamental as a glassmaker. But there were a lot of nuances coming up as we started to develop the project. And the best way Kitty informed me to understand these glasses was to start to look at these glasses in person and, you know, even get to hold them and potentially even try some of them out. And that's when she brought me to a collection in the Netherlands where we got to examine up close and indeed try out a couple of these glasses. Here you can see examples from the collection of our friend Pete. Should I say his name? Yeah. Pete van der Molen, who hopefully is watching with us this evening. He has a significant and magnificent collection of glasses spanning several hundred years, amongst other antiquities. And his fascination for these objects rivals our own. And, you know, it's a passionate experience every time we all get together. But it was here that we really started to examine the glasses in depth and really kind of deconstruct them in order to start making functional replicas.
So what we did, as you can see, we started with the glasses themselves. We decided, of course, we read the books about these glasses, but there was no book about only trick glasses. We could find some of them in books and of for example, museum collections, but we thought it was better to first focus on the glasses themselves. And Marc had got a David Whitehouse research residency in Corning at the Record Library, and he has been for 3 weeks, has been there 6 weeks, looking for trick glasses in all kinds of museum collections. And it was amazing what he came back with. And we have a very nice library here as well. So I did my research, and that became the starting point of our research. We looked, of course, also, we went to museums, we went to these private collectors, and we, especially museums have these glasses in their deposits. So we've visited several deposits and could research these glasses. But there were, of course, also other ways to look at them. For example, we were trying to find texts, contemporary texts of these Renaissance glasses, where they were described, where they maybe we were searching for texts where maybe we could understand how they were used or even made. We looked for paintings where we could find the use of the glasses, or maybe just a still life with such a glass on it. And I can already tell you that there are not so many paintings where you find them in use. There's only one type of glass that you see being used. For the rest, sometimes you see a glass standing on the side table or so. Another thing we researched were archaeological finds. And again, there were only a few of these glasses that we found, but the glasses that we found archaeologically were very important because it told us something about the people that used them when they were found near. They were usually found near a very important house like a castle. And we even know because of this, we know something more about the owners of the glasses.
This is a fun story. I think it was around 2009 or 2010, and I was blowing glass in Leerdam at the National Glass Museum there, Glasblowers, which is a public facility where people can go and watch glass making demonstrations. And I was making a bunch of different cups and exploring that. And my dear friend Jeroen, who's the glass engraver and glass cutter there, threw down a challenge. He found this magazine advertisement and threw it on the marker and said, make this. And as you'll see, it's an advertisement from our dear Kitty Laméris Kunst en Antiek, Kitty's family's shop. And this is an example of what we call a glow, or a glass that makes sound. And as I was making it, I had my first real epiphany about the objects. And because you'll see that the bowl is connected to a series of bubbles. And all of these connections are open all the way down to this bottom bubble here. And as I got to about this point in making the glass, I realized that these glasses were designed, or the design was necessitated a glassmaker and their extensive knowledge and understanding of the material to be created. Because as you drift off center with an object like this, you're going to have to bring it back to center in order to make the marise, the baluster stem, and the blown foot. And it's something like this that only a person familiar with the material would understand. And it just kind of blew my mind apart to think that the glassmakers were empowered in this way, in this time period, with, you know, using a very intimate knowledge of the material to design objects. And so I think that kind of drove me even further, because all of these glasses, again, exhibited a very, very important association to craft and technical approaches to a material, which was also a fascination of mine. And that incited another kind of intentional approach that I decided to take on, which was to try and make these glasses as close to the way that they were made in the early Renaissance. So using the tools which are fairly ubiquitous to all of us, and the techniques, which is markedly the absence of a torch in putting these pieces together. And so to understand this was a great challenge and demanded a lot of replication and trial and error, and of course, lots of failures. But it also started to develop or offer us an understanding of very specific techniques that were invented around this time period. As you can see in this slide right here, and this is a kind of a display of kind of all of the unsuccessful glasses. I think over a 7-year period, I made about 800 glasses, 37 different types of glasses, which we explored in the book in 6 different groups. And of course, yeah, when you're figuring something out, there's a lot of failure. There were a lot of exciting successes too, which I think, you know, most of you as glass makers will, if you give these a try, you'll realize that there's a lot of intuition that is going to bring you to a pretty effective result pretty quickly. But along the way, we did make some major discoveries. And one of the discoveries is represented here in the making of the Duke Dolph glass. This is a glass that's shaped like a bell. It is if it were drunk from, you had to empty the glass before you could set it on the table because it has no foot. And what was exciting about these pieces is that they have these lion masks or Neptune masks on them. And I understood masks and stamps and things to be made mostly by adding a bit of glass to the surface of the vessel and then pressing it with a stamp. But it was indeed not the case. And this was kind of part of the magnificence of getting to work with Kitty because, you know, like I said, I had these intuitions about how things were made. I had a technical approach to it. You know, glassmakers do it this way or that way. And every time I made a piece, Kitty's intimate knowledge of the original objects brought up very, very specific details that maybe I wasn't aware of or overlooked. And these objects had some of those details. The lion stamps actually sit very distinctly on the surface of the glass, and you can actually fit your fingernail behind the lion head. And another thing that's really noticeable is that when you use a stamp and you press the glass into the vessel, you always get a dimple on the inside, this glass kind of protruding into the inside of the vessel. And these glasses exhibit no such dimple. So we had to figure out a different way to do it. And so after a few discussions and a lot of thinking, I carved my own lion head out of a graphite disc. And we tried cutting the glass directly into the stamp and very quickly pressing it with a tagliole or a wooden paddle, and then coming over with the warm but stable object and sticking it to the outside. And actually the mass of the glass, the core of the glass stayed hot, and as you know, will reheat the surface of the glass for a short period of time. And within that window, we were very effectively able to stick the objects, the lion heads, to the outside of the glass. So this was a really exciting discovery to be made, and something to look for when you look at the glasses in the future. Of course, in making the glasses, you know, there was an element of, you know, trying to figure out the tricks and techniques to how they were made. But what we were really curious about was understanding how they were used. And there is a field in archaeology called experimental archaeology, where, you know, indeed replicating techniques of production are explored to understand the communities, the craftsmen, the processes, the materials much better. And I felt like this was a step away from that, but still associated. So I came up with this term, practical archaeology, which is about making the objects in order to put them into use. And here we have an example of a friend giving a try to a deer glass. And this image came from being able to actually take all of these glasses and bring them to dinner parties and bring them to picnics and just examine what people did with them, how they used them, how they played with them, you know, as they maybe became inebriated, how they became more creative or a little bit more free and less afraid of breaking the glasses or embarrassing themselves. And a lot of really interesting discoveries came up and continued to do so.
So you understand that working with a glassblower in this, well, in this research was a total game changer, because we did researches in all the other ways that I told you, but those were traditional, and this was totally new, and it did teach us so much. And at a certain moment, we were very enthusiastic. We were talking about this. At a certain moment, the National Glass Museum in Leerdam asked us if we didn't want to make an exhibition. And we said, of course, we would love to do that. And at a certain moment, we had these talks about how this exhibition was going to be, what we wanted to talk about, what we wanted to show. And I remember one day we went to the museum and we were talking about all these glasses, all these different glasses that Marc was going to make, that he didn't make them yet, not all of them. And we had so many plans, but there was this woman who was very experienced in exhibition making, and she said, okay, it's really nice, but how are you going to tell this story? You really need to get a focus. You can't just show 58 glasses. So when we came home, we were sitting and thinking about it and came up with, we thought, well, let us make then some categories. First there were 12, then 9, then 7, and eventually it were 6 categories that we can fit in all these glasses, except for one. But, well, that's not that much. So there were 6 categories, and one is the drinkouts. It's the one that, this is the Duc d'Alv that Marc was making with the mascarons on it. These are glasses without a foot and without a stem. So once they're filled, you have to empty them before you can put them down upside down again. The second group are puzzles. These glasses are so ingeniously made and are so complicated that you don't know immediately how to drink from them. Then the third group we called simulacra, glasses that are made in a different shape compared to normal glasses, like a wine glass or a beaker. Then we have the pass glasses, which is the most played and most favorite, the favorite drinking game in the Renaissance, and Marc will tell you all about it later. Then we had the sounding glasses, like the gloglo Marc just talked about, and the trompe-l'œil glasses, glasses that trick the eye in one way or the other. So some of these glasses belong to 2 groups. This one, a glass in the shape of a horn, you could also put with the simulacra, but we decided to put it with the drinkouts, the glasses that once you filled them, you can't put them down again before you drank them. This is a very interesting glass. There are many of them. They're made in the late 16th century. This was one of our discoveries. In most books, they are described as 17th century, but we found several of them that have names on them and dates. And because of that, we now know that they were made in the end of the 16th century. And I made some very intriguing discoveries about them. They were probably, there was this war between the Spanish and the Dutch, and I'm not going to explain all of it. We made a book, it's written in there, so we will tell you everything about the book later. But when you drank from a glass like this, it probably showed that you were against the Spanish. If you would tell somebody, or we'd be very obvious about that, it could cost you your life. But drinking from a horn was probably a secret sign to show that you were with the Dutch. And these are all filigree drinkouts. The drinkouts often have these mounts, silver mounts, like a bell, like what you can see here, or mills, or a kind of flute. And the mills work in a way that you turn the glass upside down, you fill it, and then you blow this whistle, and these blades will start running. On the other side of the little house, of the mill, you have a clock. And while the blades are running, also a pointer is going around. What you have to do, you have to drink the glass, and if you stop after the blades stopped running, you have to look at the pointer, and then you have to drink as many glasses as the pointer points to. Ladies only have to drink as many sips as the pointer points to. It was always the question whether these glasses were deliberately made to be mounted or if they were broken glasses, because the same shapes and models exist also with a foot. You've seen here the trumpet shape and this stylized grape. The same glass exists with the foot. And one of the results of our research is that I found in some texts that a silversmith ordered glasses to be mounted, and he's talking only about the bowl. So because of this, now we know that these glasses were both made with a foot and without a foot, which is a huge discovery. And And another one was this. This is a book from 1734, and it talks about, it is 3 parts, and it talks about Dutch drinking and eating habits. And at a certain moment, this glass is described. The person who describes it, Van Alkemade, is very proud about it. Later, we understand that this glass became his, but he knows everything about it. He knows that it was 16th century, he knows who owned it, and he made this design of it exactly with the measurements of the original glass. And this glass is very well known. It's always used in the literature, and I used it myself too in a catalog of our shop. And at a certain moment, I was invited by Jan Six van Hillegom to, because in his house at the Amstel. This is a very famous house, and you may know about it because there is this Rembrandt, this painting of Rembrandt in it, of one of his ancestors, also Jan Six. And he, so you can go there, and it's just hanging there in this canal house. So that is amazing. And the house is famous for that, but they also have glasses. And at a certain moment, they wanted to describe some of their other goods because they're especially known for this painting, but they also wanted to, to get the other things that they have more to the public. So they asked my sister and me to go there and have a look if we wanted to describe a glass. And there I found in the cupboard the actual glass that was described in this book of 1734. And nobody did expect that this glass would still exist. I mean, glasses break all the time, but this was the glass. It had the exact size of the glass in the book. So that was, and here in the book, it explains why it has the bell. It says you pour wine in the glass and you empty the glass. And once the glass is empty, you ring the bell. But the funny thing is they don't tell you why you should ring the bell. Maybe it is to ask for a refill or just to let everybody know that you finished the glass. That isn't explained, but we know once the glass is empty, you ring the bell. And there are many of these glasses with bells, or not so many, but more than horns. But there's also a horn that probably you emptied this horn and then you rang the bell. These horns are very intriguing also for a maker and very difficult to make, if I understand well.
Well, the fun thing about these horns is that we initially didn't know that they were fitting within the categories of our trick glasses. We didn't identify them as trick glasses. What we were interested in is the trick to how they were made. And here you can see us back at Pete's house looking at 3 horns, 16th century horns that he has in his collection. And as I was looking at them, I noticed that on the lip of the horn, here, and here, there are chips on the lip. And I pointed this out, and Kitty explained to me that, you know, these things, despite their remarkable curve, actually can stand up on their lip. And we can show you this one here. And so they were probably drunk from and then set on the table in this manner. And I was still confounded because there seemed to be a regularity to these chips. And it didn't look like they were cold worked. It didn't look like there were other fractures around. And it also was fascinating to me because nowhere on this piece is there a punty mark. The expected punty mark would be potentially at the finial here, but as you can see, it's super clean and smooth. And there were no punty marks along the length of this and no deformations. And so I started to kind of ponder on this and was thinking about alternative punties. And that's when I concluded that they must have used an alternative punty to make this object, to keep a clean finial, and that this object or this punty was either in the form of a claw punty, as I was being produced here, and affixed to the lip before the final decorations were added, or a disc punty. And actually in subsequent visits, I think I've concluded that it's not quite clear which one, but the number of chips that you see on the glass might indicate more the disc punting. And what this does is allow you a way to connect stably to the object, apply the waved wraps, the handles, the finial, and also bend the glass without it collapsing. The disc or the prongs hold the lip open, and actually the wraps act like ribs, you know, like your ribs hold your chest open when you breathe. In this case, the wraps hold the vessel from collapsing. And so these were two pretty exciting discoveries that we made when producing this glass. And so the tricks to producing this glass were discovered. We took the glass, went home to Kitty's house, and together with her husband, toasted with this glass. And I started to drink from it with the horn curling up, and much to my surprise, it functioned like a boot. The air exchange suddenly happened, and I was suddenly engulfed in a wave of red wine. And in order to preserve my dignity, I immediately stopped, reverted the horn to its original position, and a new air exchange happened, and the descending wine got pushed back up by a bubble of air, and the glass spit in my face. So suddenly we knew that these glasses were not only tricky to make, but they were tricky to drink from. And here you can see my dear friend Doran, unfazed by the glass and its embarrassing surprises. The puzzle glasses, as I indicated earlier, were my first fascination. The siphon glass here has this strange tube sticking out of the top of it, which makes it impossible for you to drink from normally. But upon further investigation, you will see that one of the decorative points on the stem here is open, and that by sucking on this point, you will draw whatever liquid is in the bowl up into this tube and down through the stem. But once again, a surprise ensues, and you realize that you've activated a siphon, and you can't stop drinking until the glass is empty, or you will get covered with the liquid as it continues to pour out on its own accord. But putting these glasses together, this is another puzzle glass. This is the table fountain. It has a similar tube inside, and while you can drink from this in a normal way, there is a limit to how high you can fill it. And this is probably inspired by ancient Greek ceramic vessels, which had a similar hidden siphon in them. And if you filled them up too high, they would empty themselves. And there was often an inscription about greed or taking too much. And if you take too much, you get nothing. And while this extravagant glass may have had something to do with that sentiment, I think it had more to do with just the spectacle of the siphon, which had been kind of re-examined and redefined in this era of science becoming interesting to people. And so having a glass like this, which has its own siphon effect, would be an object of conversation. And so once again, the glass can be filled to, as you see, these two different wraps here. But if you fill it above this wrap, which and subsequently above the tube here, the siphon will be activated and the wine will pour out of the three spouts of its own accord.
So that makes it it's a wine fountain or a wine thief. And one of them is painted on two paintings, both of them made by this painter. If you look at this, one of them, both paintings are made by Adriaan van Utrecht, and he came from Antwerp. He lived in the early 17th century. And here we see an alchemist at work, and we see all these beautiful pieces that were made to ornate a wunderkammer or so. And in the background, we see some glasses, two trick glasses. Here we see the Duc d'Alf, one of the drinkarts, also made in Antwerp, and this one was probably also made in Antwerp. There's this other painting where you see exactly the same glass. And we know 4 of these glasses, this one and 3 in real life, like the one that we find now on the table. This one we were so proud was on our exhibition. It is in a private collection in Guernsey. And it only has half a siphon. The siphon is broken. Of course, it's a very fragile point, and we're still thinking about maybe repairing it, but it is a bit scary. You can see how much they are alike. Then there is another one which is broken in a Dutch collection, and there is one in the Louvre, and that is all of them. They are made in a special way.
Yeah, so again, making these glasses, inserting the siphon, brought forward an intuition about the material. Of course, you know, nowadays, you know, with using laboratory techniques and torches, we can heat the glass and stick it in there. But assuming they didn't have torches back then, we started to use what we're calling a glue bit to stick the siphon in there. And before this time period, you don't see the use of a glue bit in glasses being produced in Europe. And so the introduction of the glue bit came at a very distinct time and for a distinct purpose. Nowadays, we use glue bits to stick cups together that are making parts. But while the cups themselves were made right off the pipe, these parts were made separately and attached using this glue bit. The other thing that is novel is, of course, picking up an object like this or producing it and attaching it to the goblet using what we call a secondary punty. Again, most glasses were made off the pipe. They were puntied once, like this glass is at the base of the glass on the bottom of the foot, and finished, opened up, finished, and put away. Rarely do you see inside punties, but here you see the introduction of the secondary punty. And of course, here you see the effect of the glass. When it has been filled to the top of the siphon is activated, and the liquid flows from each of the open spouts in the stem, with a happy ending at the very, very terminus of, as the volume empties from the bowl.
Yeah, that's so funny, because you also about this, we didn't know. And you thought it was ready, and then you put the glass away, and all of a sudden, from 3 spouts, the last water comes out, or the last wine comes out. That was, yeah, and now it's what we wait for. Yeah. And there are several, this is very interesting, these are prints that are made in Florence. In Florence, there was a glass house from the Medici family. And these drawings were made for this glass house, but we don't know of any fountains made there. But of course, these are very interesting because they show how they were used. You could imagine they always have 3 spouts that you would just put your mouth under a spout with 3 people and then drink from it. But this is maybe more logic, to put 3 glasses under it. And it is amazing how much wine comes from it. But why are these designs made in Florence, and why aren't the glasses made there? There may be an explanation for that. Marc showed you before the tools that were from a book made by Antonio Neri, the first one who wrote about making glass. And he was a priest who has been working, who worked at the Medici glass house in Florence. But he, at a certain moment, was invited to come to Antwerp, and he lived there with a banker, Ximenes, and Ximenes lived next to the glass house of Antwerp. So, and we know that Neri also worked there. So maybe he took with him some of these designs, and that is probably where it is possible, maybe even probably that they were made after these designs in Antwerp. And then there's this glass, the puzzle jug, which you usually see made in ceramics. And this one is made in glass. This one also, we found out that if you fill it to the rim and you finally understand how to drink from it. But people always think that this is, of course, that's also the idea, that this is the handle. So they first hold it at the handle and they try to drink from it. But of course, this glass is totally covered, so you can't drink from it. And in the end, you will understand that this is a spout and you have to drink from here. And once you get to the wine, it won't stop anymore. So, and then because this is quite full and big, it will rush out, and really at first you're happy that you finally drink, but then it doesn't stop, and you have to make, and you realize that, and you have to make a decision. Am I going to get completely drunk or completely wet? And there is no other thing. Well, we discovered that you can stop it in a way, but maybe that would be nice for you to discover yourself.
I'm just trying. I'm imagining that those of you who have worked with siphons before might be able to make that discovery. One of the glasses that we were able to exhibit again came from the Six family. Jan Six van Hillegom loaned us his puzzle jug for our exhibition. And when the exhibition went up, I had ideas on how these were made. And at the end of the exhibition, I was asked, he asked me to produce one of these for his puzzle jug collection. And I did so. And we got to bring it to his house and look at glass and spend time talking together. And then he went to go put the puzzle jug in his cabinet. And I looked at the original, my first actually opportunity to look at an original up close, and realized at this point, 10 years into the making, that I had been making these all wrong. And so I immediately told him not to put the glass in his cupboard and invited him to come to my workshop when it was in Amsterdam. And we were going to make a second attempt at a new form of making this glass, which you see here in the lower right-hand corner of the slide. I made it specific for him and his family because it has a tulip on top instead of any other type of flower, because they are very connected to the tulip history and trade in the Netherlands. And I made this one actually, instead of dropping the tube in while liquid hot and trying to pull out a handle, which was always scary and often failed, we actually made a straight tube, attached it with a glue bit in the bottom of the center of the inside of the bowl. And from there, heated it and produced a much more controlled, much more graceful, much more handle representative curve to the tube, which if I could, I'd go back and change the process shaft in the book, but that must be for the next edition.
So here we have another boot, another beautiful Antwerp boots, small filigree with beautiful blue Afili canes. And the boots, of course, became very fashionable in America after this film, The Beer Fest, which was a very nice way of researching again. I thought I had to see this complete film, which is terrible, but it was very interesting to research. And at a certain moment, this is like it's a contest between two groups, one from America, one in Germany. And at a certain moment, the Americans understand how to drink from a boot without getting wet. And they explain it on a board. Well, maybe nice to watch it too. And Mark never watched it. He refuses to watch it. Well, I did it twice for him, though. And we, besides the glass pieces, we also wanted to know of if trick glasses were also made in other materials. And sometimes they are made in sometimes they're made of silver, and in this this case they are made with ceramics, Delftware, but it is English Delftware. And what I like about this one, it's the only one known, and it has this beautiful text along the border, and it says, "Oh my head," which is of course referring to the hangovers that you have if you drink a lot of these. These are the boot is one of the simulacra, like these beautiful, adorable animals. This is also something that we found mostly in deposits. Only the two animals here with the brown background are both in the Corning Museum of Glass, and they are on show. There are about 12 of these known, and most of the time they are hidden. But after this research, some of them have been put up on a higher shelf. They are very interesting. We know they come from Antwerp because some of these are decorated with a mascaron, like the lion heads or it's not a lion head, it is a head of a frowned man. And we know that this mascaron is made is made in Antwerp because these mascarons, of course, are made with the mold that Marc showed. And every mascaron that is made in that mold looks about the same, So we know that the type of mascaron that we see on these animals is seen on Antwerp glasses. Actually, one of these is archaeologically found in Antwerp and has the mascaron with the frowned head. They're all different, but they all have features that are similar. So, for example, some of them have this mascaron. Others have these eyes that are made of canes. So this one has a red one, and that one has a purple one or blue one. They have these feet that are cut. They have this cut open mouth, and they have these strange fins or wings made with waste of canes. So they are all different, but they all have similar features. And I will never forget that at a certain moment, an archaeologist came to our door with a bucket filled with water and these fragments. He had found them at the Hongerenburg in Vlijmen near a castle, and he had no idea whatsoever what these fragments could belong to. That was obviously not a beaker, not a glass, but he had no idea, and he asked everybody and nobody knew. And then he realized that he had seen the both of us working on filigree glass in 2012 in the glasblazerij in Deerdam. And he thought, well, I'll give it a try. So he called us, and he came here in the shop where we are now with this bucket full of fragments. And we knew what it was because we recognized these fins made of the waste of the canes. And even though we don't exactly know what kind of animal it must have belonged to one of these. And Marc, of course, tried to make one.
I think it's interesting to point out that the idea of the waste of the canes is actually something to consider here. So all of the bit work on these animals was made from the moil of the pickup. And so in the end, there actually was no waste. All waste was put back into the object. And again, this was an object that had a lot of very interesting details to it. Of course, the way that the eyes are applied without torches is, working really hot. The way that the moil is kept hot and gathered over and dragged into and cut and stretched onto the piece. As Kitty said, each one is different. There are no two alike. And these also used multiple punties. So the final punty that you see here is in a good spot for the object to rest, but initially, in order to pull out and adjust and bend the spout, there was a punty under the jaw here, and which is most often covered up with a bit of the moil applied hot and turned into these characteristic feet that we see. Again, looking at original objects, you can see the relationship of the fins and the alignment of the canes, and so you can start to imagine how this form could take place. And I think this was really exciting for the archaeologists because, as you saw previously, it was just a bunch of fragments laid out. But having seen these objects, having shared these objects with him, he started to put them together into a form that resembled some of these strange and curious animals.
Another nice simulacrum were these ladies. The design on the left is made by Giovanni Maggi, and he designed for a cardinal in Rome all the glasses that he had. The cardinal was a glass collector, and he was in touch with the Medici, who had their own glass house, and he came from Venice, so he had a good source for all these glasses. And Giovanni Maggi designed 1600 glasses. We don't know if these were all his glasses or if some of them, but which probably is the case, some of them probably were also designs from him to be made, maybe, suggestion. And many of these glasses are, in fact, trick glasses, like this lady. And we found a very similar one, again, in the collection of Piet van der Meulen. This one we didn't find
Anywhere.
no. But we liked it we liked her so much. So I asked Mark if he would like to make one, and he did. It was amazing to see. He just put the picture of Giovanni Maggi on the glory hole, and he started making it, and it was there. It was just her, and it was so beautiful to see. And here we did the practical archaeology. We put in this beautiful lady, this with the white stripes, we put red wine. And there she was, a lady wearing a red dress with white stripes. And if you still remember the glass before, like this, with the arete canes, that if you would put red wine in this, it really looks like lace. And the lace, the combination of this red and white is fashion at that time. So these were the dresses that the women would wear to a party in Venice, like this lady painted by Veronese, but also in Spain and also in the Netherlands. So these were festive colors, and it's so beautiful to have discovered this.
What's kind of funny, though, is that, of course, a lot of these glasses had tricks to them which were supposed to embarrass or surprise you. But a lot of the noise-making glasses also were a little bit lewd and embarrassing in certain company. And during the practical archaeology, we talked about this glass and its relationship to the attire of fancy Venetians in the 17th century. And somebody shouted out from the crowd, "Yeah, but as you drink from it, she gets naked," which kind of explained the breasts having nipples on on the forms that you see both in the drawing and in the object that I made. And so it was, again, a very interesting discovery by our community on these kind of lewd approaches potentially hidden in such a glass.
And then we didn't even talk about the farting of the animals, because that turned out to be the trick of the animals. So we had no idea. We thought that this tail was standing upright, so you could hold the glass and pour the wine in your mouth. But it wasn't the case. You had to pour the wine from the tail in your mouth. And because of the strong bend there, it comes out making noises that resemble farts. So that must have been so embarrassing. And these were the most exquisite, the fragments were found with a lady, a noble lady near a castle. So this was what they laughed about.
This most magnificent whoopee cushions. So moving on to the patch glasses. These glasses are more of a drinking game glass. As you can see here, you have a glass and you have several measurements marked on the glass. And as I understood it, when you arrived at a party, you were given a glass and you had to drink to the line before you could pass it along. And if you didn't drink to the first line, of course, you had to continue to the second line and so on and so forth until you either achieved your goal or finished the glass. And the term passe or the passe is a representation of that line or measurement on the object you see here. And when I was learning about these glasses, I didn't speak Dutch very well. And the notion of pass also was like a double entendre for me. And I was thinking, oh, it's interesting that these glasses have the secondary meaning of when you drink the line, you can suddenly pass it to your neighbor. It wasn't for several years before I informed Kitty of this miraculous secondary definition that I had made, the miraculous discovery I had made, and she laughed and laughed and laughed that there is no relationship to the passe and the passing of the glass. So that aside, these are the most common glasses that you will see, the German ones being these stout, large, stout, broad, voluminous glasses where, you know, often more than half a liter would be drunk, potentially way more than that. And the glasses you see in the image here being used by my friend Corey, and the glasses you see in Rembrandt's paintings. And these are the most commonly depicted trick glasses of all, I believe. Many in Rembrandt's paintings, many in other paintings that represent both their use and the camaraderie that comes from it. This welcome greeting that Rembrandt is making to the person entering the environment, while Saskia looks back, maybe a little bit concerned about how much drinking will ensue, but nonetheless, a festive atmosphere, which in fact these glasses do produce. Here is an example of a very similar glass, and perhaps the exact glass that Rembrandt painted from the collection of the Rijksmuseum. This was a really exciting glass to make, both for applying the wraps and trying to do that in a regular fashion, but also, as you can maybe make out on your screens, these are octagonal. And so they require pressing into or pressing over an inside mold. Some people call it a Queen Anne mold. Some people call it a fin mold. You'll see it here, and you'll see a little bit of the trial and error of doing it. I'd like to thank Roberto Donat for making this mold and also exclaiming, what are you going to do with a mold of this size? It will never work. But when it did finally work, it was magnificently smooth and effective. And it turned out not to be so ridiculously hard in the end, once you got that top dimension correct. And as you can see, the form there is very representative of the original object. Here we see the sounding glasses and this animation kind of depicting how they fill and how the liquid flows in and out of these objects. And again, here's a potentially lewd glass, but definitely a musical glass, as the air exchanges that take place when the glass is filled and drunk from create a symphony of sounds, a composition of sounds, if you will, that are surprising to the user. There's a variety of examples, both the irregular one that we see on the right, one of a kind that we got to experience firsthand. These examples are from private collections, and I believe one from the Rijksmuseum, but these are more kind of radially symmetrical, even glasses, all of which have a similar production method and effect. One thing you'll notice here is that there's a glass with 3 segments, a glass with 4 segments, and in fact, I believe this has 6, including the 6 segments here. And you'll see these glasses ranging from 1 sphere at the bottom to, I think, the maximum being this one with 6 on the right. And so there's a whole range of them. Some of them have the windows in them, like you see here. Some of them are perfectly symmetrical and even. And all of them have this great effect of bubbling and gurgling and laughing musically as you fill them and as you drink from them. These are made by applying a hot bit of glass onto the bowl, in this case onto the first sphere that's been already produced, using that hot glass to heat the glass. It's been applied to in a certain location, and then blowing that form out through to make effectively, these thin, even connected segments in the glass.
And this is another sounding glass. These are the ring glasses. And it's very interesting to see that there were no ring glasses that were only designed to be ring glasses, maybe only one. But all these glasses exist without rings and with rings. And we discovered that every country has its own ring glass. So in Italy, where they drink wine, you have ring glasses for wine, ring wine glasses. But in the Netherlands, where we drink beer, we had these beer glasses with rings attached to them. So ring with rings and without rings. And of course, Marc made several. Can you fill it with water? And we discovered that, so this is the one that is maybe deliberately made only for rings. It's the only one that we know, like this. And I first thought that this couldn't be real because I didn't know of any other examples. But because of some archaeological finds, several where they were only known, where they were in many fragments, because of these archaeological finds, we know that the one from before is real. And probably they played a lot with them, and that's why they were broken. And Marc made them. And what you see is when it is full, you don't hear it, you don't hear any sound. But when it is empty, when you emptied it, it works as a sound box. So probably again, here, so this is empty, that is full, nothing, no sound, an empty sound box. So probably you emptied it and then asked for a refill, like the bell. Then the last group are the trompe-l'œil glasses, so glasses that trick the eye in one way or the other. And one of these glasses are these double-walled glasses. In most museums, if you see these glasses, they are put the other way around, because in the bowl, you have the punty. So it looks, and the other way, if you put it upside down, it looks like a bottle. But this is the way you should put it. And the punty is there because of the making, and Marc will explain that later. You can put it upside down, fill it with wine, and then close it here. And this beautiful undulating band will hide the closure, the wax or something else what it is closed with. Here you see a glass made by Marc, filled with lemonade. And here you see a 17th century example, and they put a cork in it, but it should have been wax. And you see that this is totally covered by this dark blue thread. During our research, we found out that these glasses were called little deceivers, bedriegertjes, because of this little glass. This glass is part of a collection, and there was an inventory list of this collection of the 19th century, and there these were called bruiloftske bedriegertjes, so little deceivers for a wedding. And this is a 19th century glass, and you see that here a ribbon covers the now cork in it.
So we have a video of the making of the little deceiver, and many of us know the sucked-in bowls. I think this was the invention of the sucked-in bowl right here. Taking this kind of bottle form with a spherical bottom, heating it enough in the right location and allowing it to drop in, maybe sucking in a little bit in order to get that double-walled effect. And of course, again, working with Kitty and learning things that I wouldn't have kind of come across on my own, like the fact that I would have immediately stuck a cork in this and called it a little deceiver. And she said, well, in the 17th century, they didn't use corks, so we have to use another material. So we experimented with wax and achieved a certain amount of success, but there might be other possibilities to how these pieces were sealed.
And then there's this last glass with an egg-shaped bowl inside. And this is made in Holland, Tyrol, the first place where actually trick glasses were made and often ordered in Venice, but also they had also their own glass house. And if you put white wine in this glass, the fish will swim in the white wine. And what is interesting and why we wanted to show this is that this was followed in two ways, in the north and in the south. So in the north, you probably know that we make these roemers, these green glasses. And this is a typical engraved roemer, but they also made them with these little pillars with fish on them. And here you see this glass looks very cloudy because it is an archaeological find. But usually they look like this, they're transparent, even though they're green. These are glasses typically for white wine, so you would fill it with white wine and then see the fish, and on the other side there is a crab swimming in it. These little pillars were found most of the time alone, and nobody knew what they were at first, and they were even thought to be Roman until this glass was found in Amsterdam at one of the canals. So this is what we did with that, inspired by the glass in Austria. And this is what the Italians did in Venice. And this is one of the first glasses that they started to design on their own. So first they only made glasses for the northern market. And around 1700, they start to make their own designs, very sophisticated trick glasses. For a long time, until now, until 2 years ago, we didn't understand why there was this blue bowl. It is very decorative, of course, but what is it for? People suggested even that you could
Squeeze your lime
on top of it. And often these blue balls are gone. So that was even the proof that it was to squeeze the lime, because of course you would have to put force on there and then it would break. But
however, we had some other ideas about it, looking at the optical effect glasses, and there are an enormous number of these glasses throughout the ages with enamel decorations on the inside, ranging from fish to fruit to anything in between. And so optical effects kind of came back into our minds, and replicating, making this replica of a similar style vase with this blue object on the inside. You see that the ribs actually create an optical effect, multiplying or distorting the blue ball on the inside. And you can also see that it is even more effective when you put water or wine or some kind of liquid on the inside here. So we started to produce these and incorporated them into the research because of the optical effect. And suddenly we made a secondary discovery, which was that when you have this object filled almost to the top with wine, you get this reflection of the blue ball as a band when you're looking down into the glass. Another amazing and unexpected optical effect, which may have precipitated, here you see it in a glass that I made. Here we see it in, this one's an original.
this one was also made by
Oh, this
you.
one is also one made by me. So you see the different versions, whether it's a smooth bowl or an optically ribbed bowl, the decorative effect that happens. And this may have precipitated the production of these incalmo vessels, which may have also had a blue ball inside, or may just be incalmoed with a blue section to represent this decorative effect.
I think we're a bit running out of time, so maybe we skip this one. So
No
no way? Okay, so this is
If
a
you
glass.
can hold on for a little bit longer, I think it's really, really worth learning about this glass.
So this is again a roemer, and people found often archaeologically only little parts of this type of humor. You see that this is totally scratched or cut, but fragments of these were found and nobody understood what they were until some texts were found. And somebody came to us while we were doing this research and said, well, you have to read this. I must admit that this has already been published before in Germany, but we didn't know about it. And there was this book where that told us what you could do in the nights in the winter when it was cold and dark, and there were all kinds of suggestions. And one of the suggestions was just to take a glass. You can do this with every glass you want, and we can do it too. We've never tried it yet. And you have a diamond. And with a diamond, you make this undulating spiral around the bowl. And then you start at the rim. And at the starting point, you heat the starting point, and then it will crack all around until the base of the bowl. But it will remain standing. You then pour wine in it, and it will go right. It will keep the wine. And when you know how this works, you put the glass on your lips and between your nose and your lips, and you drink from it, and it will still go fine. But then you give it to your guest who doesn't know that this glass is totally cracked, and he or she will start drinking, and the glass will open like a lemon peel. And probably these glasses then broke, and that's why they were all found broken near houses. There's one known that wasn't broken, and it's in a German museum.
These are phenomenal glasses, and I've spoken to a few different people working together a bit with Keep Brooklyn, Adam and Susan, and just all of us are excited for people to start trying these out and seeing what we can make of them with kind of selective cracking of the glasses. So now we're kind of coming to the end of our talk, and it's a moment to point out the fact that it is 2 years this past April 1st since we opened our exhibition, since we premiered our book in Dutch, and aptly and excitingly enough, in those 2 years, a lot of interest, a lot of excitement, a lot of really positive feedback has been generated, and a lot of very interesting connections have been made. And one of which is this opportunity to speak tonight and to work together with Mary and the Wheaton community on their exhibition that's happening in this April 2024 on trick glasses and objects that have come from and been inspired by, and where they're heading to. Their objects in there, I believe, from Fritz Dreisbach, from Tim Dreyer, amongst many others who were really excited, that have also done their own research and explorations. And you know, we know you're out there. We really praise the work that you've done in the contemporary realm, and we hope that our historical work is both inspiring and exciting for you. This is a nice image of us on the 8 o'clock news on April Fool's Day, opening our exhibition. We premiered the English version of our book at the GAS conference last summer in Detroit, 2023. Here we are, having just finished a demo of 6 glasses in an hour and a half, racing through glasses while Kitty presented all of the information that you have here and other parts as well. Here we are presenting, or here you can see Kitty in the background or in the screen as we were presenting at Urban Glass, which is where I had the opportunity to meet Mary and where I had the opportunity to start sharing our research, and most specifically this book that we had the honor and the opportunity to put together and share with the world. And I have to say that the book was really the achievement of this whole research. An exhibition was a miraculous thing, and we had so many partners and so many people involved, but an exhibition is temporary. And the fact that we got to produce a book alongside this and create the first kind of compendium of information to kind of generate and excite our community was a huge honor, and yeah, for us, a huge achievement in this world. And so we're really excited that it's out there. We're really excited to know that people are buying it, that people are reading it, that people are inspired by it. If you don't have it yet, we've put the website on, and this big, huge QR code can be, we'll link you to the website to order the book. We're really excited to be sharing it, and we're really excited to think that this is a big step in generating more information about the history of trick glasses, as well as hopefully inspiring the development of new trick glasses in the future. So on behalf of Kitty and myself, I'd like to thank you all for tuning in, for your enthusiasm and your support, and for going out there and making your own trick glasses.
And drink from them.
I think that's a good idea. Maybe Alex will make more for us and we'll drink from them. But Kitty and Mark, thank you so much. It's been a wonderful night. We've learned so much from you, and it helps to put our 2024 exhibition in a little better context. You've built that historic context that we really needed. And while we're talking about this, since you mentioned other people who make trick glasses, I do want to acknowledge Bill Gudenrath, who made 2 of the trick glasses, who makes historic reproductions using correct techniques like you. We've mentioned
A big
Bill.
inspiration to me. Bill was my first glassmaking teacher at Corning. So sorry to interrupt, but yeah, he's really kind of the godfather of this, experimental archaeology and subsequently practical archaeology.
Thank you. That's great. And Grace Whiteside, a contemporary glassblower who recently, in the last few years, had a residency or fellowship there at Wheaton, made trick glasses while she was at Wheaton. So we have a real cross section of the trick glasses. But thank you so much. And are there questions from the audience that we need to address before we leave?
I was going to say there were a couple quick ones. One was addressed, and it was about the siphon glass, whether or not it's a siphon. I actually have a really quick question about that. Is the way to stop the siphon by blowing back through it? Is that the move?
In fact.
Okay, I was going to have to go into the shop and make one to to try to figure out. So thank you for answering that. We also had a quick comment that the ceramic version of the boot seemed to have a pour spout on it. Do you have any information about that, or is that something that you can address?
Pour spout?
The pour spout.
Maybe it's just that the top opened out.
Oh, it might have just been, yeah.
Yeah, I believe that it just flared out. So the boots in that time period had kind of a collar kind of flaring out. So I don't think it had a pour spout. It may have been a combination of the flared collar and maybe some representation of a bow or a leather buckle or something like that at the back. And a quick comment on the siphon glass. I enjoy speculating that, again, like if you were in the know about a siphon in this time period where in the Renaissance, scientific phenomena were becoming common fodder of conversation. People were studying sciences on their own. If you were aware of the phenomena of the siphon, you would be the one who knew not to spill all over yourself and blow back into the siphon to deactivate it. And thus you would gain some kind of higher status at the party or something.
And about the boot, the pouring part, the 17th, 16th century ones don't have it, but in the 18th century, they sometimes have it, always on the side that you have to drink. So probably often people drank from the wrong side. That is how we interpreted it. But to make sure that one would drink from the right side to get all the beer in your face, they had a spout on the side you have to drink to get all the beer in your face.
To get embarrassed.
To get embarrassed, yes. So that's in the 18th century.
I have one more question from the comments. This is from Dylan Delano. Please excuse me if I
Hi,
mispronounce
Dylan.
your last name.
Amazing you're watching.
Yeah, and so Dylan's asking about what, Mark, you would tell your younger self now after this journey of yours.
I think what I'd tell myself, and I also put this in the book, is I mean, not as specifically, but the thing about this research is I was constantly impressed by the capacity and the capability of the glassblowers that were making things 400 years ago in you know, lacking the technologies that we have, with the delicacy, the intricacy, but also the sense of proportion and form. And you know, that was humbling over and over again. And there are many glassblowers out there today who are doing phenomenal work, and I'm awed by all of you. But it's a different world, and these people lived and breathed glass. It was in their blood for generations, and so there was something to that I think brought them to a certain familiarity and capacity with the material. And when you encounter this, I think it's very easy to be intimidated by such a thing. It's easy to be intimidated in the glass world in general, because there's so many magnificent makers around us, and not holding back, going forward. I mean, am I proud of the glasses that I made? I am very proud of the glasses that I made. Can they be made better? Absolutely. But for me, it was about the research. It was about the exploration, and not hesitating and just continuing along a path that you choose was a powerful lesson.
Thank you guys so much. Really appreciate that. And I'm sure as people have more questions coming through, they can reach out to you, or even better, they can read the book that contains even more information on the stuff.
There's lots there. It's by no means the end all and be all. So yeah, we want people to ask questions. We want people to share information. And you know, hopefully this research goes on and takes several forms.
I can say too, as somebody who, you know, lugged it home with me from the conference in Detroit and kind of tore into it immediately, it's a really, you know, complete and really exciting piece of work. So everybody should get it.
Thank you.
It is. Again, thank you so much.
Thank
Well,
you.
Marc,
Thank you. It's been a pleasure. It's been a lot of fun. We hope that it transmitted well, and we thank everybody for joining.
it was fantastic. Thank you both. I echo everything that Mary and Alex said about your involvement. I mean, Marc, through the years of Wheaton, you've been involved. So thank you for your continuing connection and exploration with us. And I thank everybody who joined us here. I know some of us are joining from very far away, so we do appreciate your attendance, your time, and your energy. As we conclude, I encourage you to not only check out the book that Kitty and Marc created, but also to please, if you'd like to stay current with their research, with their creative practices, follow them on Instagram and check out Kitty's website that's posted there on the screen, as well as in the chat. I invite everybody to continue with our Wheaton Conversations programs. Be sure to register for the next one. We will be joined by our Spring 2024 Creative Glass Fellowship recipients. They are Anna Booth, Nancy Cohen, and Jaime Guerrero, and they will join us on Thursday, May 16th at 6 p.m. As always, I'd love to hear from you if you are new to this program or new to WheatonArts. Please feel free to contact me with any questions or feedback that you may have. Also, please feel free to download the chat or reach out to me by email if you would like it to be sent to you. I sincerely thank everybody for joining us, and I hope that you join us for future programs. Have a great day. Bye, everybody.
Bye. Thank you so
Good
much.
night.